Mikel Arteta is building something special at Arsenal. Today, we're going to review their Premier League season and have a little look at where they're going to go with the brilliant stuff that Mikel Arteta has already done. This is the Premier League review part 2. If you missed part 1, go and check it out. We dive into Bruno Fernandes's playmaking and a little bit of chat on Jadon Sancho. Arsenal finished this Premier League season in second place. They finished with the highest points total since the Invincibles in the 2003-04 season. They finished with the third highest points total in the club's history, but also they won the joint most games in the Premier League with 26, and finally 88 goals, the most they've ever managed in a Premier League season. Arteta's obviously built a fantastic shape and system at Arsenal. The kind of 4-2-3-1 defensive structure that moves into a very fluid 4-1-4-1 shape with extra bodies in midfield has been absolutely sensational. That, of course, starting with Zinchenko operating as a left-back, Partey in defensive midfield, and the system really evolving and moving through the season. Partey was a key hub with Zinchenko at the start of the year as Arsenal created that box in midfield with Xhaka and Odegaard in the inside channels and the width helped by Saka and Martinelli. Of course, Arsenal dropped off a little bit with William Saliba missing out. For me, he's been like an £80 million signing for Arsenal. Of course, he spent a season on loan at Marseille, came back, and this season has been one of the best centre-backs in the league, which is great. The big thing with that I think Arsenal fans have got to take to next season is the youthful nature of this squad. You've got the likes of Saka, Odegaard, Jesus, Martinelli, Saliba, Ben White, Gabriel, Zinchenko. They're all of a very similar age profile that have got the best years of their football ahead of them. Arsenal just need to maintain this quality and they'll be competing for the Premier League title. So in terms of that title, of course, won by Manchester City, I think one of the big things that Arsenal may need to improve on is getting over the line, having that composure in the last few games. I think there's a few games, if we look at Arsenal's season, that were really defining in terms of slightly dropping out in that title race. It was a run of 3 draws in a row with Liverpool, West Ham and Southampton. I thought the Southampton point was almost a championship point in a sense of they got back in that game and that would have built some really good momentum. But I think losing leads at not only at Liverpool but also at West Ham United after being 2 goals up was kind of defining their season. When you look at Arsenal when they took the lead, they didn't lose a game this season. The only team to do so. But in terms of the end of the season, they were only, 5 points behind Manchester City? They drew 4 of those games when they took the lead. If they won 3 of those against, as we mentioned, those teams, West Ham away, Liverpool away, but also the draw when they took the lead at Southampton at home, the 1-1 draw, these are the games that cost Arsenal. And I think looking forward, it's having that ability to be flexible with the squad, but also signings that will push Arsenal, over the line in terms of them being, the nearly men to being title winners. And I do believe this squad will do that. They're the second youngest team in the Premier League. So it's going to be an interesting one. I think Arteta, built a bit of a system after losing, Zinchenko, after losing Saliba that kind of worked. We're talking the last few games, Jorginho came in, Partey moved to fullback, Ben White moved to centre-back, and of course Kivor came as an auxiliary sort of left-back. And what we saw with Arsenal's shape, with Jorginho sit in defensive midfield, Partey move inside, and then create that similar 3-2-5 structure that really, really works. I think there's a little bit of balance that needs to be struck on the left-hand side, but I think it's good for Arsenal from a tactical perspective going into next season to do that. We can see the kind of difference in the shapes that Arsenal have played this season. Let's take the performance against Everton in the Premier League. You can clearly see the triangles that's created on either side of the pitch. Zinchenko in that narrow position, joining the defensive midfielder, of course, the left-hand side being operated with Xhaka playing in a higher position and the width ahead of it. But then if you take a look at the recent games, the 5-0 against Wolves, it was slightly different in the sense of you've got the right-back moving inside, number 5, Thomas Partey joining Jorginho in defensive midfield. So I think this shape's got a little bit of work to be done on it. It's not a classic Arsenal shape. Let's take another game, the 4-2 against Aston Villa. It's not really well defined. That's a really well defined attacking structure. I think Arsenal need to build a little bit of that inverted right back with Thomas Partey through to next season. And Arsenal, the big thing is they kept up with one of the best teams we've ever seen in the Premier League, with the best centre forward. Haaland broke records, 36 goals in the Premier League. And for Arsenal to be close to that is super impressive. Looking at players of the season, I think there's a number of them that you could be, point of being standout. I think Saka, Martinelli, both absolutely brilliant in their own right. But I do think Martin Odegaard has had a very, very underrated season. People are not talking about this. 15 goals in the Premier League, all from open play. That's the most any midfielder's ever managed, beating Yaya Touré's record. The season he scored 20, he scored 14 non-penalty goals. Odegaard beat that this season. And I think when you look at the timings of the goals, back end of the season, mid part of the season, just constantly contributing, constantly getting Arsenal out of difficult situations with late movement, with daisy cutters from the edge of the box like we saw against Spurs, but really improving himself. He's arguably the perfect system player for Mikel Arteta. And system player, it's not a disrespectful thing to say. He's brilliant at controlling the tempo in the final third, retains possession really, really well, but also gets into the box at the right time and finishes moves off. When you look at that right-hand triangle of Arsenal with Saka and Ben White and Odegaard, it's one of the best in the league for me. And I do believe that Martin Odegaard is the Arsenal player of the season with his 15 goals. We've got to talk about Saka, double figures for goals and assists, 14 goals, 11 assists. Only Mohamed Salah was the only player to get over double figures for both of those numbers. You think of the development of the side as well. Not only that, you've got the likes of Martinelli that scored 15 goals in the Premier League, 5 assists, massive improvements from last season in the Premier League where he finished with 6 goals and 6 assists. You've got to give a lot of credit to Mikel Arteta, who's probably one of the best coaches in the world at dealing with wide players. The development of Martinelli, the development of Saka this season has been absolutely brilliant. When you consider the goals that Arsenal scored, 88 as we mentioned, the most they've ever managed in the Premier League season. The really interesting stat that's come out of it, the only team in the Premier League to have 4 players that have scored over 10 goals in the league. As we mentioned, Odegaard and Martinelli, and Saka and Jesus. And if you're getting a tune in an attacking sense of Granit Xhaka, 7 goals and 7 assists, could have scored a hat-trick in his final game for Arsenal. You've got to look at the future and think it's very, very bright. And dealing with what Arsenal need to do to upgrade their side, I think, having a backup number 6 or a number 6 that can even come in and take over the position, Declan Rice would be the number 1, person I'd look to bring in there. But that sort of left attacking midfield role, we've seen Smith Rowe play that position really well. He's not played this season. It's been an injury hit campaign, but he could come in and play that role. Got potential of Fabio Vieira still. I do like Fabio Vieira, but he's not had the minutes that I expected. You could even throw someone like a Zinchenko into that higher role, or an Enzo Lefebvre from Lorient, available for around 15 million, or even Manchester City go out and sign Joao Cancelo from Manchester City. Of course, his loan spell at Bayern Munich is not going to be continued. But you think about his best performances in Manchester City last season, he was playing as that inverted left back. That's exactly the position that, of course, Zinchenko plays for Arsenal. And I think Zinchenko could be used higher up the pitch. I think Zinchenko could be used as an auxiliary attacking midfielder, could be used in that left central midfield position higher up. But having someone of the quality and calibre of Joao Cancelo will be expensive, could cost around 50 million quid. But you think about the quality that could bring Arsenal. You're looking at bringing in Declan Rice as well. And Arsenal's base midfield now is made up of Cancelo and Rice. And Zinchenko plays in this inside left channel, but can rotate with Cancelo. We've seen how good Cancelo is in that attacking position. I arguably think that could be the difference between Arsenal winning the league and a second place finish. Declan Rice, Cancelo, that's all their squad needs. It's the fancy players now. They've got a great squad, great core. Arteta's doing a great job. And I think his quotes of, at the end of the season that he still feels like he's let the Arsenal fans down. Massive, massive future ahead of Mikel Arteta and Arsenal Football Club. And I think a few signings and they win the Premier League. If it's in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years or 4 years, I genuinely think if Arsenal keep this squad around together and they build it year on year with some good recruitment, they're destined for a Premier League title. Great season for Arsenal. I think I'd give it an A rating. Top of the list. Expected them to finish maybe 4th in the league. They finished 2nd. Great season. Played some brilliant football. I'd argue the best in the league this year as well at times. Some super dominant possessional play, rotation, fluidity, great attackers. Like Saka really evolving, Odegaard evolving. And if they can build in and bring in a Joao Cancelo into this attacking lineup, I think Arsenal are destined for a Premier League title. But anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments. Rate Arsenal's season with a letter Of course, F is a failure. A is the best rating we can give us. Of course, check out SofaScore, and we'll be back very, very soon with some more Arsenal transfers. And of course, I think the next video we might do is what do Arsenal need to do next? Goodbye.